In the summer of 1936, the small town of Anniston, Alabama, nestled in the heart of Calhoun County, found itself ensnared in the throes of the Great Depression, a relentless economic storm that had battered the region for nearly a decade. The air was thick with tension as the once thriving community of 24,000 residents faced staggering unemployment rates that soared to 25%, leaving many families struggling to make ends meet. The cotton prices, which had once been the lifeblood of the local economy, had plummeted by an astonishing 90%, driving many to abandon the cities in search of sustenance on the very farms they had once left behind. As the harsh realities of poverty set in, the landscape of Anniston transformed. The streets, once bustling with activity, now echoed with the footsteps of those who had returned to sharecropping and sustenance farming, their faces etched with worry and despair. The unusually cold weather that year only added to the community's woes, as the harsh conditions made it even more difficult to cultivate the land. Amidst this backdrop of economic struggle, a series of catastrophic events unfolded. The commercial bank fire, a devastating blaze that consumed a vital institution, marked the beginning of a tumultuous period. Shortly thereafter, a series of tornadoes swept through the area, further compounding the hardship faced by the townsfolk. Yet, within this climate of despair, a stark contrast emerged. The black community, residing in the West 15th Street neighborhood, had managed to carve out a semblance of stability, establishing their own shops, industries that thrived despite the national economic downturn. This relative success, however, ignited a simmering resentment among the white population, who found themselves grappling with the harsh realities of their own plight. As racial tensions escalated, the National Guard was called upon for the 5th time in a single month to restore order in Anniston. The incidents that unfolded during this period were marked by violence and fear. On July 3rd, a young white woman was reported to have been attacked and left unconscious in a ditch, prompting a swift response from the National Guard. Just 10 days later, another alleged attack on a white woman ignited a mob mentality, leading to a violent confrontations outside the local jail. The situation reached a boiling point on August 10th, 1936, when an encounter between a white woman and a black man spiraled into chaos. Mrs. U.L. Williamson, while churning milk in her kitchen, heard her baby crying and rushed to the room, only to find a black man holding her child. In a panic, she hurled a hammer at him, causing him to flee. The alarm spread like wildfire and the community braced for violence. As tensions mounted, the local law enforcement struggled to maintain control, unaware that the mob spirit had taken hold, leading to a tragic series of incidents that would culminate in violence and loss of life. The summer of 1936 in Anniston was not just a chapter in history, it was a crucible of fear, resentment, and the desperate struggle for survival in a town on the brink of chaos. On August 11th, 1936, Art Bush found himself at the center of a violent confrontation that would change his life forever. The day before, a posse of white men, including Ozzie, Pat, J.A. Hicks, had come to his home in search of a black man suspected of attempting to kidnap a white infant. While the local newspaper reported that the posse was motivated by the kidnapping, a deeper tension simmered beneath the surface. Art had recently been promoted to head sharecropper by J.A. Owens, the farm owner, a position that incited jealousy among other sharecroppers who were unhappy about working under a black man. As word of Art's promotion spread, his family feared for his safety. His wife, Mary, warned Owens that the promotion could lead to trouble, saying he had just signed her husband's death warrant. That day, relatives came to visit the Bush home, urging Art to hide, as a mob was reportedly coming to confront him. Art took refuge outside, concealed by vines on his back porch, as the first group of men arrived, searching for the alleged kidnapper, but leaving when they found no one. About 20 minutes later, a second mob, including the Hicks, arrived at the Bush home, furious that Art was not present. They attempted to force their way inside, threatening Mary with hanging if she did not provide the names of other black residents they suspected of involvement in the kidnapping. In the chaos, the situation escalated and shots were fired. Accounts differ on who fired first. Pat Hicks later claimed on his deathbed that Art shot first, while Art insisted that the posse initiated the violence. In the midst of the gunfire, Art defended his family, firing twice from a window and twice from outside his home. Mary and their 6 children huddled in fear as bullets whizzed around them. The confrontation resulted in injuries to several posse members, including Pat Hicks, who was shot multiple times. The chaos drew a crowd, and soon a mob of around 500 people arrived, armed and intent on finding Art. The authorities confiscated about 50 firearms from Art's neighbors, and this mob was only dispersed after threats to take away their weapons as well. On Tuesday, August 13, 1936, the afternoon following the incident, a group of about 30 or more unidentified white men gathered near the Bush property and burned down the Bush barn. Although destructive, the barn contained hay, corn, and fodder for livestock. It did not harm anyone. The barn burning was seen by many as retaliation for the shooting. Mary Bush and the children were in the house next door to the barn, which was left untouched by the fire. They were placed in protective custody after this incident. As tensions mounted, the Alabama National Guard was called in once again to restore order. Art Bush was eventually arrested in a swamp 2 miles from his home. He was charged with murder after Pat Hicks succumbed to his injuries. Despite the chaos and violence surrounding the incident, Art maintained that he was merely protecting his family from an angry mob. The aftermath of the shootout left the community in turmoil, with racial tensions at an all-time high and Art's fate hanging in the balance. On August 23, 1936, Ozzie Hicks, the brother of Pat Hicks, fatally shot Woodrow Allen Bush, who was raised in the Bush household as Art Bush's adopted son. The tragic incident unfolded in the wake of heightened racial tensions that had gripped Anniston just weeks earlier. Ozzie and Woodrow were reportedly together, searching several homes in the black community for another man whom Ozzie believed had been with Art during the shooting of his brother. As they returned to the vacant Bush house after their search yielded no results, Ozzie claimed to have heard Woodrow say, "Let him have it." Fearing it was a setup, Ozzie reacted by shooting Woodrow with a shotgun, killing him instantly. This shooting occurred in the same location where Pat Hicks had been shot less than 2 weeks prior. Woodrow's body was discovered the following morning by his relatives, who had been searching for him after he did not return home. The Bush family noted that Woodrow had an intellectual disability and suspected he was targeted as a convenient victim in the ongoing cycle of revenge. It was believed that Pat Hicks was intent on finding any member of the Bush family to kill, regardless of their involvement in the earlier incident. Despite the apparent motive of retaliation, Ozzie denied making any statements to police indicating he intended to kill the person responsible for his brother's shooting, even though Art Bush had been in custody for nearly 2 weeks. The police were informed of Woodrow's shooting the next morning, and upon learning that he had been with Ozzie, they arrested him after he admitted to the shooting to Sheriff's Deputies Munroe Graham and Arlen Williamson. Ozzie was subsequently held in the county jail on a murder charge. Interestingly, this retaliatory killing did not provoke significant unrest in the community, with Sheriff Deputy Norman L. Summer stating he did not anticipate any serious repercussions from the slaying. The police also began investigating whether inflammatory newspapers from the North had contributed to the racial tensions in the area, which had been distributed within the black community. On September 21, 1936, Judge Lamar Field convened a grand jury to indict Art Bush and Ozzie Hicks. Art Bush faced charges of murder for the fatal shooting of Pat Hicks, along with 2 counts of assault with intent to murder for injuring Forney Martin and J.A. Hicks. Brought in from Jefferson County Jail, Bush entered a not guilty plea before being returned to custody. His trial commenced on October 6 in the Calhoun Circuit Court, where he served as the primary defense witness claiming self-defense. Bush testified that the shooting occurred after a second group of men had come to his home, following an initial search by another group. He described being threatened by the mob and admitted to firing from a window without knowing who was outside, insisting he did not fire first. He expressed uncertainty about hitting anyone due to the darkness that night. The Bush family was shocked to learn that the Hicks boys, who had previously been friends and shared Sunday dinners with them, were part of the mob. The prosecution, led by J.R. Sanford, called Forney Martin as a witness. Martin, who had been wounded in the neck, claimed that the mob was fired upon first and identified Bush as the shooter when he illuminated him with a flashlight. However, 3 other witnesses, including Ozzie Hicks, testified they did not see who fired first. The defense also presented several character witnesses, many of whom were white, to attest to Bush's good reputation. After testimony and arguments concluded by Wednesday noon, the all-white jury deliberated for just over an hour. Against the odds, they acquitted Bush of the murder charges. Remarkably, despite the tensions surrounding the case and the presence of troops during Bush's arrest, no demonstrations occurred following his acquittal. Bush was visibly overjoyed by the verdict, expressing his relief by stating he was mighty glad to get loose. His acquittal made national headlines, with one newspaper declaring, "Man who killed mob member acquitted by Lily Whites. Unprecedented." Ozzie Hicks faced charges for the murder of Woodrow Allen Bush following the shooting that occurred on August 23, 1936. He was arrested the next day, August 24th, when Woodrow's body was discovered. On September 3rd, Hicks appeared before Judge Holman Jr., where he awaited action from the grand jury while being held without bond. His trial commenced on October 9, 1936, after the jury was selected the previous day and kept together overnight. During the trial, Ruby Porter, a relative of Woodrow Allen, and Ozzie Hicks were the only witnesses to testify. Porter claimed that Hicks had sought out Woodrow and told her he would return him before sunset. In his testimony, Hicks described feeling ambushed when he returned to the abandoned Bush house, alleging that Woodrow had shouted, "Let him have it." He insisted that he had not taken Woodrow with him to search for another black man suspected in his brother's death, but rather to gather evidence related to that incident. Chief Deputy Norman L. Summers served as the state's principal witness, testifying that Hicks had expressed an intention to kill a black man present during his brother's shooting. Hicks, as the principal defense witness, claimed he did not intend to kill anyone. He explained he shot Woodrow out of fear, believing he was being led into a trap when Woodrow ran ahead and yelled. The defense called several witnesses who attested to Hicks' good reputation, although some noted that he was mentally weak. Hicks entered pleas of not guilty and not guilty by reason of insanity. Ultimately, he was acquitted based on his plea of not guilty. Following his acquittal for the murder of Pat Hicks, Art Bush faced ongoing threats from the community, which prompted him to leave Anniston and relocate to Chattanooga, Tennessee within months of the trial. Despite his legal victory, the atmosphere remained hostile, and Art continued to receive death threats. His family chose to remain in Anniston, as Art believed it would be too difficult to uproot them entirely after they had settled in the area. Art Bush spent most of the remainder of his life in Chattanooga, only returning to Anniston when his health began to decline. Passed away in a veterans hospital in Anniston in 1967. Although he was buried in Mount Liberty Cemetery in Anniston, his family, including his daughter Lillian Bush, who moved to Ohio and raised her children there until her death in 2002, eventually dispersed from the area. One of Art's sons relocated to Kansas City, Missouri. In the early 1980s, Pamela Pierce, Art's granddaughter, made the decision to return to Anniston to reconnect with her heritage. She reported that when she shares her grandfather's story, community members often express admiration for Art, recalling how he stood his ground against the accusations he faced, highlighting the respect he garnered for his resilience during such a tumultuous time. In 2012, Sonia Rama, a second cousin 3 times removed from the Hicks brothers, reached out to Pamela Pierce through Ancestry.com. She expressed her distress upon discovering the history of the mob that attacked the Bush family, stating that she was deeply upset by the events. Rama extended a heartfelt apology to Pierce for the unspeakable acts committed by her ancestors. She explained that her motivation for reaching out stemmed from her family's history. Her mother's family were Jewish immigrants, many of whom were murdered by the Nazis during the Holocaust. Rama recounted how her grandmother would look at family photos and cry, questioning how God could allow such atrocities to occur. She noted that Pamela's grandmother likely pondered similar questions regarding the violence faced by the Bush family. Pamela was deeply touched by the letter and appreciated that someone was still reflecting on this painful chapter of history. However, she expressed regret that the apology had come 10 years after her mother's passing, acknowledging how much it would have meant to her mother to receive such recognition and understanding. The Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Initiative aims to provide legal closure for many cases while ensuring that the stories of victims are preserved for future generations. In the case of Woodrow Allen Bush, Although no legal remedy was available at the time of the investigation, the restorative justice aspect is highlighted by the apology exchanged between the Hicks and Bush families. This interaction demonstrates that family members continue to acknowledge and remember the narratives of their ancestors, even those from several generations ago. Ultimately, a sense of justice was achieved through the ongoing investigation of the case, allowing the legacies of Art Bush and Woodrow Allen Bush to endure in historical memory.